Hi, this is Chris Heiser from Internet 2 in University of Pennsylvania, and this is grouper training on the admin track of the grouper client. We'll have an introduction to the grouper client, talk about whether or not you need to administer it, how to download, how to customize the defaults, the usage, ID terminology. You can add your own LDAP operations and miscellaneous Java operations, and then how to build and host it. So the grouper client is one jar that communicates with grouper web services, or LDAP, and it's also used by various connectors like the Atlassian connector and the Quali connector. It's also used for notifications between one grouper and another grouper. So we're going to talk about whether or not you need to administer the client. You don't really need to administer it. People can just download the grouper binary client and set the URL and login and password and connect to your grouper if they have access to connect to the web services. You may want to administer it if you want to make it easier for users by putting the URLs in there so they won't have to look them up on your wiki or know what they are. You could customize the usage for specific things to your institution. And the ID is, if you call your IDs at your institution certain things, you can institutionify them so that when people use the grouper client, they could type those words in instead of subject ID or subject identifier, which most people might not really know what it means. And you can provide canned LDAP operations or Java operations. You download the grouper client from the grouper software site. Generally, if you're customizing it, you're going to download the source release and not the binary so that you can build a new tar GZ. Or you can download with the grouper installer just to sanity test that the grouper client works. So then you're going to unzip it. So this is a part of the screenshot of the grouper software page, and the source release is in that link. So you can edit the grouper client properties and set the URLs to your environments to help users know where to connect. So you could say that whatever your institution name test environment is here, and your institution name prod environment is there, and just fill in the prod environment because that's what most users are going to use for LDAP, and then you can do the same thing for web services. And then if you're using the grouper client discovery, you can edit the discovery URLs for the same thing. So you can put the test URLs and the prod URLs, and those could be in comments, and then uncommented would just be the prod URLs. For usage, if you are customizing how the IDs work, you could change the usage file so that instead of subject IDs, you could put pen IDs. And you can also customize the output so that instead of subject ID, it says pen ID. And then when the users at your institution just type java-jar grouper client.jar to get the usage, they'll see your institution's specific usage. You can customize the ID terminology in the grouper client by editing the grouper client.properties. And normally users would use subject ID or subject identifier, which at your institution may be different things. So at Penn, we have a Penn ID and a Penn key, which is another name for the net ID. So for subject IDs, it would be Penn IDs, subject identifiers, Penn keys, Penn ID, Penn key, and then in capital, Penn ID and Penn key. And then once you do that, commands can use that new terminology. So in this case, java-jar grouper client.jar -- operation equals get groups ws -- pen IDs equals grouper system instead of subject IDs. And normally people won't be using grouper system; they'll be using their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 number. But in this case, this is what the example has. And then in the output, you can change the output of the grouper client so that instead of subject ID, it says pen ID, in this case grouper system, but in the real world it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever your subject ID is. And in this case, we have java-jar grouper client.jar operation has member WS web service, pin IDs grouper system group name top.role, index 0 success code is member true. You can do custom LDAP operations to have your grouper client be a simple LDAP client. So for example, you could look up a student by their ID and return the net ID. So in this case, we have pen name to pen ID. OU equals pen names is where we're looking, and the matching attribute is the pen name, so we're converting from a pen name to something else. And attribute labels, pen name to decode, is what's going to be in the command line, and the returning attribute comes back from LDAP as the pen ID attribute, and the output template just says pen ID colon and then whatever pen ID was returned, and the result type is a string. So after you configure that LDAP operation, a user will be able to type java-jar grouper client.jar -- operation pen name to pen ID, pen name equals jsmith or whatever the net ID is, and it will go to LDAP and look that up and return pen ID equals something. So that can be a useful tool to do simple LDAP operations. A more advanced thing is to do a Java operation. In this case, you need to implement a Java interface, and basically in the grouper client.properties you can put a custom operation name and class, and you can increment those with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And you can call it whatever you want the command to be called and whatever class you want to call. And then when someone enters that in the command line, -- operation equals cosine like websec, it will invoke this class and a method on that class so that you can process the rest of the arguments and execute the logic. So to build, when you download the source package, you'll need Java 6 and Ant. And after you're done editing whatever edits in the grouper client.properties and grouper client.usage.properties, and potentially adding in more Java classes or whatever you want, you would run Ant in the grouper client -version folder, and then it'll say build successful, and there will be an institution tarball for you to either rename or distribute to your users. So if you look in dist institution, or actually in just dist, there's grouper client institution.targz, and you could rename that to put your institution name in there and then put it on your web server. So you can rename that built tarball to put your institution name in. You can host it on one of your web servers, multiple, and then link from your own grouper documentation site so users know where to get it, or your wiki. So for instance, you could have https whatever your school name.edu, and then wherever your grouper folder or wiki is, and then grouper client.myschool -- and then the version.targz. Click on the quiz link in the video description to reinforce your knowledge of this topic. Thank you very much. For more information, click on the links below.